Welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live in Victoria, British Columbia on a classic wooden motor cruiser. But not this one. We're currently cruising on my friend's boat MV Zephyrus in the British Columbia Southern Gulf Islands. Absolutely gorgeous. And we have a project this morning that this morning is perfect for. And this morning's project is dealing with the not very parallel to the ocean waterline. As you can see, MV Zephyrus's waterline has a bit of a bow in it. Now, of course, it could be a bit terrifying to think that the boat has developed a bow, but it hasn't. It's just a crooked waterline. So we have a plan. Let's see how well this works. Okay, so the idea of putting a new waterline on is a bit complicated, but one neat thing about being afloat is that the waterline is, well, it's perfectly established by being in the water. So what I thought I'd do is to take this chunk of foam and a old milk container and a marker, if you can see the marker at the end, and simply float it in the water, and it will create a line on the hull that is, well, 2 inches of foam, 2.5, or whatever the milk container is. That becomes a new datum. Obviously it's not the waterline, but it's parallel to the waterline just above it, and after we haul out, we can average it out, correct it, and move back down to the actual waterline. Now, if you can look carefully, I'm just going to move us out just a hair there so that the sun is off. You can see I've made marks all the way along, and I'll show you how I did that. Now, of course, those are pretty messy marks because we waited for the flattest possible time early in the morning, but there's still a little bit of wave action. So basically I just make many marks, and it averages out to something pretty close to the waterline. Here, I'll show you. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is wipe off salt that is collected because it stops the pen from working rather promptly. And then, trying not to affect the floating point here, I just make a bunch of, you can see what I'm doing. Now we can hear the ferry, so we're gonna have wake here in a minute, so I gotta get on with this. It certainly helps to have an assistant for this, so Zephyrus's owner is actually looking after keeping the boat in exactly the right place while I do this. Waves are coming. You can see my marks are getting further apart. But happily, we've already done the other side while it was pretty flat. So between the two, we're going to be able to average this out to something pretty good. I think. See ya. And for full transparency, we're already hauled out in the boatyard, but before we can get on with all the joy that this is, we got to jump back in time and finish up some of the projects that got us here. Okay folks, no rest for the wicked. We're going down into the bilge because, well, we're not done. Okay, and the next little project, relatively mundane, is to reestablish the seawater connection, the raw water connection. This hose used to come along to a relatively sketchy old sea strainer that kind of hang in the breeze here, and down to that through hull down there, which I've previously mentioned is not a real through hull. It's simply a hardware store ball valve on a, I mean, it's not a real seacock. It's a hardware store ball valve on a through hull, so that's got to be replaced at the next haul out. So I'm going to pull up my little floor here, which I absolutely love, and I'm going to install a new sea strainer. and sort this all out. All right, then I've attached some nice new hose to the existing skanky through hull and ball valve with 2 hose clamps. I didn't think it would be very interesting for you. It certainly wasn't for me. So now I'm going to reinstall, or install for that matter, a nice new sea strainer right about here somewhere. Now, for those of you who will recognize this sea strainer, yes, this is indeed the one that I was gifted off the Amazon wish list from my boat. But because the sea strainer that was on this boat is in such dire circumstances, I'm going to put this one on here, and the Zephyrus has already ordered me a new one for my boat. So this will work out great. Just got to rearrange some stuff here. So this sea strainer has a stepped inlet and outlet so that you can put either 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, or inch, something like that. Anyway, we're going 1.25 inches, so it's the middle one. So I'm going to cut off the bottom nubs so as not to restrict the flow. I'm assuming that this will be stepped inside as well. I may actually have to do a little chamfering at this point to make sure it all goes. But anyway, so let's just get these off here. Yes, I can see that it's stepped, but it's stepped a little further up, so I'm going to have to chamfer this out a little bit. Okay, so I've determined the correct size is this hole saw. Well, there's no way I can get this hole saw to bite going in this direction. I'll just make a mess of it. But I can drill through from the far side, and that should make it pretty neat. Okay, a little tidying up with a knife, and that should be perfect. And just to make absolutely sure there are no little shards in here, because the whole point to a sea strainer is to strain them out. To facilitate this, you will have noticed that all the wires that used to be on the side of this floor beam, sole beam, are now gone, and that's because they're tucked up underneath, much tidier and out of the way. There we go. Solid. All right. That's the inlet, and the outlet goes here. Let's just get a hose clamp. There we go. Done. Now, the last thing I really like about this particular strainer is because it's top filled, I can prime the system when it's dry as it is now, thus almost guaranteeing there's no chance of running the seawater impeller on the engine dry, which is not a good thing. Okay, let's prime it. Holy moly. You've been watching me fill the sea strainer in an effort to prime it, and I've put 6 pots of water in so far. Well, some of you have figured out what I've done. I've just put 6 pots of fresh water straight into the ocean because the sea cock is open. Ah, it's foolish. Basically, you need to close the sea cock, fill this up, put the cap on so that it's watertight, airtight, then open the sea cock. Yeah. Half a pot. Yep. Now I can open the sea cock. Okay, we're not going to start it up just yet, which would be a lot of fun to see stuff churn around in here. I don't know, maybe it's fun. Because I have half a dozen other little things I need to do to the engine before we can do that. Hello there, folks. Well, I haven't shown you much today because really it was just a bunch of misery, just tidying up. I'm trying to get everything done down in the bilges, tidying up all these wires, straightening them out, getting them all stream relief. Finally got the big windlass wire moved back, which meant a bunch of big fuses in here, which I'm not entirely thrilled with, but they'll do. They're certainly, in terms of being electrically installed, they're fantastic, but now I need a panel to cover that. So I'm just going to close this up, but what I'm going to do before that, I'm going to use my favorite fluid film to lubricate all the shivs and the cables for the steering and the helm. This is a lanolin based product. I'm not endorsing it. Those of you who've watched me before know that I love this stuff. I don't think it's even available in the States, but it's basically the underarm goop from sheep, lanolin, with a non-petrochemical carrier, and so it's safe for just about everything. You could put it on toast, pretty much. And just like that, I am dressed for success, and unhappily, almost none of this project is going to be possible actually inside the bathroom. As with every boat project lately, it means I have to take up the sole again and move all this stuff. And that fridge is full of cheese and beer. Oh yeah. Okay, if this little tour gives you any indication about how much fun I'm going to have on this little project, I can tell you. So it starts with the continuation of the incredibly sketchy framing that is holding up the sole in this boat. Beyond that, you can see a freshwater tank, reasonably nice shape. You can see my recently added freshwater system accumulator held in with bungees, working just fine, but in a way not ideal, and I'll tell you why. There is the sump for the shower. I hesitate to take this cover off because, oh yeah, there's just, yeah. We knew what was going to be in there, didn't we? Okay, so here's the old plumbing. Goes up to a very sketchy looking through hole, which happily is well above the water line, or at least slightly. Okay. Now these are straight cut threads rather than pipe thread, which is a tapered thread. So it's going to be a little harder to get it started. So you got to make sure you have the ends nice and clean. And because they're not a tapered thread, they don't tighten the same way pipe thread does. So a little more tape on here will be just right. There we go. That feels pretty good. Okay. Good. So I'm going to put this into the shower as a dry fit with the assumption that I can lift it up later and put the sealant in and push it back down. But this should work. Let's see. So here's a shower all nice and white after 3 coats of paint. I'm just going to put you in the far corner here so you're out of my way. And I'll start to fish this in. Okay, so here's the fun part. Piece of cake. Excellent. Now the thing is, it's not level now, but I'm going to go forward and put a clamp on the hose so that any future work I do can't disturb this. And then I'll come back here and I'm going to set this in 291 and I'm going to put a weight on it so that it'll stay nice and secure. Love it. Okay, let's move forward. First thing to do in here is to get this horrible old shower sump set up out of here because we won't need that at all. Oh, it's so far down. Okay. Now you're probably asking, Peter, why are you putting all these extra hoses together and why have you abandoned the sump tank? Well, that's because I'm not going to use a sump tank. I'm going to use this sweet little gulper pump that I've had lying around. I used it as a temporary bilge pump at one point. And I'm going to put it on a switch. Many people have set their showers up that way. So much simpler. You simply turn on the switch when you start showering and turn it off when it starts sucking air. I will be so glad when I am done working in the bilge. Alright, I'm not going to show you too much of this because you can't see what I'm doing down here, and I can't really get the camera and a light and the work I'm doing down here. So I'll just record me grunting here for a bit in frustration, and then we can be done that. Oh yeah. Alright then folks, I am not going to call this elegant, but it is secure and it will look after what I need to do. Everything is tightened in fairly well. So I'm going to spend my energy now gluing down, bonding down, whatever we're going to call it, the actual drain in the shower. I'm trying to wait for this paint to cure as much as it could before I sand it a little bit so that it'll key a little bit to the 291. Okay, this is going to get a little precarious. I tried to let this paint cure as long as it could, but it's still days and days, if not weeks, away from being tolerant to acetone. So what I want to have to do is mask off around the hole because I intend to clean up a little bit with acetone after I've put this on here. So this is a bit of work, I'll tell you. So what I'm going to do, I have this tube of white 291 Sikaflex, except it's all gone hard because it's been used and glued, taped up, but of course it didn't hold. Only used about 1.5 inches of it, and it's all hard at the bottom and it's all hard at the top. But in the middle here, there's some softness. So I'm going to make a tidy little surgical incision here and see if I can get at a little Sikaflex 291. And then apply it with this scungy little piece of plywood I have here. So let's see if I can squeeze. Oh, look at that. Beautiful stuff. Absolutely fantastic. I'm only going to need about that much. So let's just put that right there. Of course, it'll roll over and stick to the bottom. Pick this up a bit. Yes, this is going to be messy. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, yada-dee, yada-dee-dee. On here. I unfortunately adhere to the more is better philosophy. I know, I gotta stay clear of that. All right, let's get rid of this stuff before it causes a mess. Not that the next few minutes isn't gonna be an utter mess. So in theory, all I have to do is put this down in the 291, give it a good splooge around, and be content with where it's sitting, which is largely by feel. Now you say, well, there's no way it's going to stay there. Well, you're right. It's not going to stay there. So what I need is some way to put some weight on here. And that's in the form of this small glass jar and a gallon of paint. So I'm going to put this on here. Now you can't see it anymore because it's in the way, and I'm afraid I'm not going to do anything about that because I need to be able to keep scooching this around and make sure it's in the right place. Now the astute amongst you are going to say, well, Peter, you're on a boat. How on earth do you expect this to stay and not tip over with the motion of the boat? Well, I don't know how I'm going to expect that to happen. I really don't know. So far, I would say this feels great. Okay, I'm going to save you the joy of staring at the top of a paint can and advance this on my own for a little bit. Wish me luck. Yes, I am sitting here in the bathroom with a gallon of canola oil on top of a gallon of paint, on top of a glass jar, on top of a shower base that seems to be staying pretty much flush. Basically, I just have to babysit it long enough until it tacks up enough and it'll hold. And once it does that, it's pretty safe. But in the meantime, this whole thing could go over just like that. If the coho came in, we'd get enough wake that there's no way I could keep this upright. But the coho's not running, so it's pretty good. Wish I could get to a beer. I think I can get to a beer. This is a lot like watching paint dry. Yeah, but I did manage to find myself a beer. Salted Lime Mexican Lager. I can't even read the brewery on here, and not that it's all that interesting because it's not really very good. But come on, right? Salted Lime Mexican Lager. It sounded good. Oh. So you're wondering why I have a gallon of canola oil. Well, I have just purchased said gallon of canola oil. Because I'm a man in my late 50s, I have a certain penchant for deep fried things. And I haven't eaten much deep fried in the last 10 years. I really haven't. But I want to make Scotch eggs. Do you know what a Scotch egg is? It's basically a soft-boiled egg wrapped in sausage meat, wrapped in breadcrumbs and egg wash, and deep fried. And just to the point where the egg is still just a little bit soft and the sausage is cooked, and oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Definitely pub food. This and a newly acquired tiny little electric deep fryer are fodder for an upcoming episode on Scotch eggs. Stay tuned. It'll be a while. Okay, it's tomorrow. Unbelievably, my little tower has stayed up all night and never fell over once, so that should be nicely cured under there. Let's get this apart. Okay, well, we'll start with my weights here, which amazingly stayed balanced overnight, and my little glass pressure plate, which is slightly bonded. It is perfectly aligned. Now the sealant, caulking, whatever we want to call this, 291 is still just a little bit soft, uncured, which allows me to clean it up a bit with some acetone. So let's get to that. Okay, so just a quick wipe should get the worst of it off, but I don't want to cut down into the sealant that's in the joint too much. I'm gonna say that's about perfect. So now I can peel the tape. I'm gonna call that very successful. Okay, with that done, the only remaining work is to connect up the wire to some power and a switch, but that's gonna have to wait until we're out on the hook because we're going cruising tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Does everyone hate cutting sheet metal as much as I do? Especially stainless, especially relatively thick stainless? Good God, what am I doing? Beauty. I don't know. I mean, how accurate can you really get? You need one of those circle dividing thingamadongles, which I don't have. I'm going to say there. It's not a perfect circle anyway. I can see a big bulb in it here. Don't worry, it's not going to matter. Poor man's center punch. Don't be too harsh. This screw will work perfectly afterwards. Okay. Problem? Solution. It's about time I did that. All right. Well, hello and welcome to the Beer of the Week, otherwise known as break time here at the boatyard. It's Friday afternoon, it's approaching golden hour, and we thought this would be a good opportunity to take a quick break, but we're still in the heat of it. Okay, so beer this week is from Yellow Dog Brewery, the High Five Hazy IPA, and I hope it isn't a spoiler, but I really like this. We've been drinking this all week. This is absolutely fantastic. So let's fire up a couple of these. My arms are rubber, so if I'm shaking while pouring, I'm very sorry, but that's about the best I can do. It's been quite a week, but we've got a lot done. I'm glad we didn't have more to do because we barely pulled off what we've got done, but I'm so pleased with this boat. Every time I turn around and look at the bottom or look at something different or assess something, it's in really great shape. And with a wooden boat, as long as you just keep making it better. Cheers!
Cheers.
Yellow Dog, High Five Hazy IPA. Oh yeah, that is just perfect.
Oh yeah.
That's good, eh? All right. So we'll say goodbye because we're just going to enjoy these next few minutes, but I know you need a beer, word of the week, and because I'm staring right at it, I'm going to say barbecue. Barbecue is the word of the week this week. If you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, use the word barbecue in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random from the first 24 hours worth of comments. I don't know what you're gonna do with barbecue. I'm really sorry. See you next week. Cheers.